Hello, podcast world. You are listening to Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network. I am your host, Lydia Turner. Sitting across from me is my daddy-o, my daddy, BT.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Foodie Friday here. Do appreciate you listening.
We had our inaugural episode last week, and it did rather well.
We were rocking it.
So much so that we decided to do a second episode.
Here we are. Be warned. We're back
see.
for number 2, and there may be more after this. No, there will be more after this.
We have so much more.
You know, as to be a little self-serving, I mentioned this last week on the show, as my nickname for years has been BT, Brian Turner. And I had chocolatier. We had chocolatier Brian McElrath, also known as BT McElrath, join in on the program. So now for show number 2, as to add another layer of this self-aggrandizement into the is none other than Brian Turner. Yes, there are more than one of us out there. More than two of us.
In the same spot.
Longtime executive chef at the Loon Cafe. Good to have you here, my fellow BT.
Is there a BT club? Do you guys
Yeah,
hang out?
we're starting one.
Oh, are there hats?
You know, we're having the leotards designed right now. Yoga pants.
It's got kind of a Zubaz pattern.
Yeah.
So, you know, that'll freak out the
Eddie Van Halen.
the populace out there. Exactly.
A lot of
Yeah.
feathered hair. I'm seeing.
A really nice, loose sort of environment for, you know, south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, drawstring.
Yeah, as you get older, the belts don't work quite as well as the drawstring or just the elastic.
Just the elastic.
You know, that'll work just fine. Good to have you here, brother.
Pleasure.
Vic Smith is here as well. Before we got the podcast started, the question came up here in the Alive and Social Network studio. Is that your real name?
Yes, sir.
It is.
Yes, it is.
He's getting a little southern drawl going on here. So short for a longer name?
Yeah, it's Bickley.
Bickley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can really just punctuate that. Mom used to yell that off the porch. Come on in here for dinner.
Now, are you from the South?
My family's from the South. I
right.
moved all over the place.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when we were speaking with Marcus, I was looking at your menu before, and I saw Grinder. And I lived up in New England, and that's what we called them back then, were grinders, the sub sandwiches.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
what I
just
had
kinda
for
took me
lunch.
back.
It was delicious.
There you go.
It is delicious.
So I moved around a lot, but my folks started and ended up in the South.
Gotcha.
So where's your family from originally?
Kentucky and North Carolina.
Okay, excellent. Good Southern boy.
Yeah.
And Marcus Dorn is here. Speaking of Darby's, where we had lunch last week before the show and where we had lunch today before the show. Lydia had a grinder. I had the crispy Asian wrap salad.
Very much appreciated.
It was delicious. Marcus Dorn is the co-owner of Darby's Pub in the North Loop neighborhood. Good to have you here, Marcus.
Thank you, BT and Lydia.
Marcus, is that your real name now, or is it short for something longer?
Oh, no. It's
Marcus Stania or
no.
something like that? Or
No.
Marcus Stania, you get on in here now.
No. My mother would call me Marcus Daniel Dorn when she was extremely mad at me. That's my middle
Daily?
name. But pretty much hourly, daily. But yeah, oh yeah. And God knows it got used plenty. So
We thought we'd throw just a little bit of a spotlight on the legendary Loon in the Warehouse District,
which I used to work there as well.
And you used to work there back in the day.
We worked together in all kinds of weather.
And also, and then also on the burgeoning North Loop neighborhood. Literally just north of the Warehouse District, but it doesn't take into account just Washington Avenue alone. You guys located just off of 4th and 5th.
Yep.
In the Designers Guild building. So there's a whole neighborhood there that, reaches out from Target Field Station all the way to Washington. And so there's just a nice scene going on there, to be sure. So
most definitely. Yeah,
we'll talk about some of that and many, many other things going down on Foodie Friday.
Dig that. Well, right off the bat, I want to ask, is Darby named after anyone in particular, or is that a fictional name?
No, the previous owners was definitely a great great-great-grandfather of one of the gentlemen who supposedly had a pub in Ireland. I don't think any of us have ever confirmed that. But when I bought Darby's, decided to keep the name, the baseball fans knew us as Darby's. My business partner Mark and I just said, hey, let's roll with Darby's. We liked it, and we'll keep going forward with it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the history before you guys moved in with Darby's. What was that like? Who were the previous owners?
The previous owners, actually, a gentleman that missed the other Mr. Brian Turner, aka Ski Dad, and I worked with at the Loon. Jeff Johnson owned a little cafe there called JJ's Dry Dock, and eventually it evolved into Darby's. Him partnered with a father-son, Bill and Joe Regan, and my business partner Mark and I had been there since day one. Me as a general manager, and Mark was one of my first hires. And they kind of had a little family falling out, and when that took place, we kind of knowing the inner workings of Darby's and what was about to take place in the neighborhood. Made an offer, and luckily they accepted.
Dig that.
Nice.
Well,
nice.
and so I say luckily. Sometimes I say luckily. Sometimes I'm not so sure about that. But in most instances, luckily.
Not easy being a business owner is what you're saying.
You got that right. It's a lot of hard work, but it's also a lot of good times. If you're passionate about what you do, which I am, and you like people, there's no better way in the world to make a living than having your own establishment.
Had you had any inklings in that way prior to this? I mean, were you a part owner of anything before, or any other ventures, or
Nope.
was this like the first big leap for
Yep.
you?
This is the first. Obviously, been a general manager, various managerial titles, bartended my way through the Twin Cities, quite a few places. The Loon probably being the longest, from 90 to 98. But my first dive into ownership, and it's eye-opening in a lot of ways. It's very rewarding in a lot of ways. It's the networking. It's unbelievable what a great community the Twin Cities bar community is. It's like we all know each other in one way, shape, or form. Very much support one another. I know
Trade favors. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Trade favors. I know, one of the owners of the Loon, John Stein, gave me a huge break when he hired me at the Loon back in 1990. I was, one of the outside guys. It's like everybody at the Loon had pretty much been promoted from within, and he took a chance and said, hey, Marcus, I'd love for you to come work for us, and I learned a lot on the job. And he was one of the first guys the day I bought Darby's and signed the papers. He was one of our first customers to come over and say, hey, congratulations. And like I said, the Twin Cities bar community, it's great, fabulous.
I love to hear that, and Brian's told some stories about that over the years too. Just where you trade ideas, you trade
bounce
food,
stuff off of each other,
yeah.
and what do you think? What do you call Donnie Hannon over at Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
I need to know what you guys are doing. The lemon ricotta, just give me a box of kind of how it goes together. The pancakes over there, or trade favors, or somebody will say, "Can you make me this? I need this much." Sure. When do you need it? And we trade a lot of favors. And
Even sharing recipes too. That's
to a certain. I mean,
Yeah.
we have our confidential ones,
Right.
of course, at the Loon. But somebody like. I was running the Court Bar before I went back to the Loon in '93. I've worked there since 1986, but in '93 I got a phone call from JJ running the show over at the Loon. I need to know how to make this new popular jalapeno tartar sauce. All right, so I tell him over the phone, and he's like, well, where did you get that recipe from? And I said, out of my head. What? What do you mean out of your head?
Right now on the
right
phone.
now, on the phone. One of our most popular items is the Chinese chicken salad. I gave him that recipe for the dressing over the phone.
Yep.
So,
That's awesome.
but we trade an awful lot of favors, and there's a good, like Marcus says, there's a lot of people in the downtown bar district, that know each other in one way or another, and it all works really well.
So there's some competition, obviously, but that's obviously not as big as just the cooperation.
No, it's not like
everybody's going to
it's
get
not
their
like
business.
the Italians and the Chinese. In New York City, they're going to muscle their way across Canal Street and push the mafia out.
So it is a real good spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A real good spirit. You find that in a lot of industries. I mean, a lot of people think in the radio world that I inhabit, and Bick, you were in the TV industry as a reporter, an entertainment guy, and there's just this outsider perspective looking in sometimes where people think, as an outsider, that you're in competition and this and that and the other thing, but on the contrary, it's sort of a kinship, that's for sure. Share ideas.
People relate to each other within the industry. When you're in the broadcast industry, there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of go out to the bar and talk for hours about all the things that are wrong or things that you'd like to do. And so it really does bring people a lot closer together within the industry across.
Indeed. And it fosters more business by creating a good spirit of business.
And a camaraderie between everybody.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
I mean, you want good competitors out there.
Yeah.
You always want good competitors. You don't get better at what you're doing on the tennis court by playing a crummier tennis player than you, to use that just as the analogy sports-wise here. You get better by playing against a better tennis player. That's how you get better.
And something I think that a lot of us have learned over the years is I have a tremendous amount of respect for people that I've worked with over the years. And I've been in the restaurant business since 1971.
Wow.
And I have a tremendous amount of respect with people that I've interacted with over all these years here. California, I've got people that I know in Oregon and Washington State, and the peers that I have in my group, I mean, I went to School of Hard Knocks. I didn't go to chef school or anything like that, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years.
Definitely. I have a question for all three of you. We'll direct it at Marcus first, but definitely chime in, Bick and Brian. I want to frame it for you this way. I grew up going to different concerts with my dad and kind of accompanying him where he was emceeing, he was opening for somebody, and it definitely was reflected in the kind of work that I do now where, I have a background in event production stuff and live music stuff, so there's definitely an appreciation there. Were there beginning and kind of very formatic, were there instances where you were brought into a pub at like a young age, or, you went to the trivia night with your parents, or was there a grandpa that brought you in and you got to have the foam off the top of Gramps' beer, or what was that like?
Yeah, that was happening at way too early age. Unfortunately, I think I could blame my passion for alcohol on my grandfather to start, and it just kind of kept snowballing from there. For me, and a lot of people probably won't remember this place, but I was a freshman at the University of Minnesota. The first bar job I ever had was at Graffiti's, which anybody
I remember that.
who's into the Twin Cities music scene, that was back when a lot of the music that was being played at Graffiti's was just the coolest music. We'd have Long Island Tea Night on Monday night. It was kind of the place for the college kids to go and dance and have fun, and it's an icon that's sorely missed in the Minneapolis market. That's where I got my start. It just opened my eyes to what was out there.
For our podcast listeners, remind us where Graffiti's was.
Yep. If you're familiar with Sheik's, which at the time Sheik's was the fine dining establishment downstairs, built in an old bank building. Graffiti's was a college bar upstairs. Later, both of them closed, and Sheik's opened as the strip bar that was there for God knows how long. And I'm not even sure what it's renamed now, but it's no longer Sheik's. Right there on 4th Street. it had a personality all of its own, and a lot of cool people that just go and hang out. And the cities, especially Minneapolis, is just missing something like that. But for me, it was like I was a freshman at the U and didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. And next thing I know, I had this job, and I moved from there on to Pacific Club, which was in the Lumber Exchange building where the current Poorhouse is. And then to the Loon from there, and 3 places that definitely, formative years for me in this industry and kind of defined me as a person. And I graduated from the U in 4 years and got done and said, I'm never going to put a suit and tie on, and here I am 20-some years later. So, Yep.
Casual shirts, sweatshirts, and more ever since. Wearing jeans to work.
Yep, jeans, and I wish summers were longer in Minneapolis. I'm one of those guys that wear shorts every day if I could, which I know the other Brian Turner here, Ski Dad's a big fan. When I do make my little deliveries over to the Ford building, I get some weird looks when I'm wearing shorts and it's 10 below zero. So I do have some self-pride that I don't like people making a target of me.
So being so close to the Ford Center and to Target Field, what is the weirdest story that you have? Has there been some weird baseball player that stumbled in, or has it been more of the fans that have been weird?
Yeah, more the fans. A couple of good stories I could tell you up on Olson's rooftop patio, but I'd probably never do business with Olson again, so I'm not sure that we maybe want to talk about those.
The ad agency Olson occupies 4.5 floors on the top of the Ford Center building, and they also have the rooftop patio, which has stories that Marcus will not tell us about today. But we just want to paint a picture as to where they're located in that North Loop neighborhood.
Yeah, you have an absolutely beautiful view into. You can't see the action inside of Target Field per se. You can see quite a bit of down into the stands and the big scoreboard from the rooftop. And for events like Kenny Chesney, what a great place to listen up on the rooftop.
Sure, because you can hear everything up there.
Yeah. They did a top-notch job when they put that thing in. So we as Darbies are fortunate enough to do a lot of business over there, and we love those people, and I hope both of us are in the neighborhood for a long time to come.
Well, there's another big building going up, the national headquarters for Be the Match.
Yep, Leukemia Lymphoma Society.
So that's going to be another edition of BODS in the neighborhood for Darbies.
900 people, 7 stories, right across from the Ford building.
Well, and frankly, it'll be, 2 blocks, to, I guess, 3 blocks to the Loon Cafe, for Brian and his establishment as well.
Exactly.
And just more and more apartments and condos and other things happening in that whole North Loop neighborhood. It has to be a sort of a good place for you right now, projecting where, the business could be in a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, what have you.
Yeah, most definitely. And, for us, I know I've said it a million times, a 95-win baseball team would do us huge favors as well.
No doubt. Hey, Beck, I'm going to piggyback on what Lydia's line of questioning was. So you go back in your formative years, and later you become a performer, an actor, a TV guy, video producer, which is what you do now coffee roaster, or proprietor of roasted coffee, but a lot of different areas in your background. Was there a person or a set of circumstances or things like that all came together that pointed you in the direction of the career path that you took?
Well, I would hate to blame my last many years on an outhouse, but I will. When I was 14, 15 years old, I was in Vermont. For some reason, the Southerners went up to Vermont, and the accents really go over really well there. I'll tell you. And I was working in a greenhouse, and there was one point where the owner said, "Now go out and change the outhouse and the chicken coop." And I thought, there's got to be something better for me than this. So I ended up going to a local radio station, and I said, I want to be on the air. And they said, well, you'll need a third-class operator's license.
Yeah, back in the day then, you had to have an official piece of paperwork.
Right. So we ended up going, my father said, You want to be in radio? Okay, what do you need to do? Well, I got to take some tests. I got to study for them. Take the test down in Boston. That was the closest place. Took me to a Red Sox game, took the test, passed them, came back. The ownership had changed at the radio station. It's in a trusteeship.
Of course it is.
That sounds familiar, too. Huh? And the guy said, hey, well, all right, you want to be on the air? Come on in here. He puts a newspaper in my hand, and he says, okay, when the song's over, the disc jockey's going to toss it to you, and you're going to read a story out of the paper. I'm 15 years old. I have never sweat as much in my life.
In this short little
And I
span.
ended up reading it, and I thought, I don't even remember anything of what happened. All I remember was he said, okay, you know what? You can work on the weekend.
How about that?
And so there it was, when you could do something like that. And so I ended up getting dragged into or letting myself go into the broadcasting industry, radio and television for years, and ended up finally in video production after we made a movie a few years ago called Gangsterland. And that was from all the work that we had done, my wife and I, at the Wabasha Street Caves in St. Paul, because we have been immersed in the history of criminals in 1930s St. Paul. And Brian and I were just talking about this, that this stuff gets you and you just want to learn more and more and more. So we made a movie a few years ago, a documentary-style movie with local actors in the Twin Cities, shot it, and then have done, released it and everything. And then I got the idea on a golf course about a year ago. I thought, we should really kind of brand this into a coffee, but not a souvenir coffee, something good. So I ended up finding a roaster in Buffalo, Minnesota, and we chatted. I saw his operation. We tried his stuff, and we've packaged it. So that's how I ended up in the coffee business.
There you are with the coffee business.
All over the place.
We'll dig into that a little bit more coming up here. Are you sure you made a good move there, though? Chickens and outhouses, really? I mean, you know how rough and tumble the broadcast world can be. I'm just saying, really.
I know. It's very, very much. I thought going from the chicken coop in the outhouse to the broadcasting industry, some people who have done the business could draw a lot of correlation.
Wasn't
there.
that big a leap?
Not a big leap.
I thought it was the greatest leap in the world at the time.
Indeed. How about you, Brian Turner from the Loon Cafe? Early food memory, person, set of circumstances?
One of my earliest, fondest memories was I wanted to learn how to put the curly Q on top of a Dairy Queen ice cream.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Then go on to someday maybe own a Dairy Queen and give people Mr. Misty headaches for the rest of the day. Not really. I come from a long line of food people. My grandmother was a fabulous cook. My mother was a fabulous cook. But I didn't really interact much with them. I just kind of stayed off to one side. And my parents owned a sheet metal and welding and engineering place, and I went into that after high school, and I'd worked in restaurants before that. And it's really difficult to work for your parents.
Yep, it certainly is.
We work together, just to make it clear here. It's not a for and with thing, it's a together thing.
Working in this metal shop with noise and dirt, and, you've got to I made 100,000 parts, this one run of parts. It was 100,000 pieces, and I thought, this really sucks.
I don't want to do this.
And I'd been back and forth to restaurants, so that's what I did. And, I've kind of traveled around, and, I worked at a bunch of different places. But I started working I was washing dishes at Lincoln Dell in 1971 for $1.65 an hour and a meal.
The Lincoln Dell right on
Lake
Highway
Street,
or Lake Street?
Originally, and then I also worked at the one out on Highway 12 in the old days.
And Highway 100, right? Yeah.
Every
days,
2 weeks you get a paycheck for $65. You were filthy rich. At 13 years old, But then I kind of, I did some stuff, and I just, people always ask me, and it's interesting, how do I learn how to cook? So I go over to my bookshelf and I grab the Joy of Cooking, and I take the red ribbon thing that goes in it. And I've got it, in fact, it's set like that in my bookcase. And I take the red tape and I said, read everything on the left side of the red tape, and it'll tell you how to do everything on the right side of the red tape. And people that I've told that to, it actually works for them. Because they go, well, I need to know what a Bain Marie is, and they look in the thing. Oh, yeah, it's a double boiler. Okay, fancy name for a double boiler. But I've immensely enjoyed the food industry. And when did you work Pacific Club?
Pacific Club, what was it, 88 to 90?
Yeah, I was my first executive chef's job was at City Tavern.
Oh, yeah.
In the Lumber Exchange building.
Yeah.
It was my first executive chef's job. And we also did Marsh Edelstein's joint downstairs. Marsh's.
Oh,
Marsh's,
yeah, I remember
yeah.
Marsh's was there.
Mm-hmm. And met some very interesting. Tom Arnold, the comedian, was a bartender there. He got fired for vending something.
For extracurricular sales is what you're saying.
One afternoon, I'm in my office and I'm doing some paperwork, and the woman that did the booking for events downstairs comes up and she's got a bunch of papers in her hand, and she said, "Have you ever heard of a guy named Jimmy Page?" Yeah. Well, he's going to be here tonight for an event, and it turns out that he was here in town. Robert Plant had a solo show. It's in St. Paul, but he was here to rehearse upstairs at the old cookhouse.
Sure.
Yeah.
With Robert Plant and John Paul Jones for Live Aid.
Oh, wow.
So that night, I said, "Oh, I'm taking that case. That's fine. I'll take care of this one." And went downstairs and met him, and he was really a nice guy, but he's really small. He's a really little guy.
And he's got a voice that's really high,
Squeaky.
too.
That I thought of Zeppelin in those
Right.
days. So, but it was very interesting. But, the whole, and how the restaurant business has evolved over the years is just astonishing.
Yeah.
I've been in the business so long, I remember when kosher dill spears came in 5-gallon cans, not plastic buckets. Like
Hands.
then the lid was soldered on, so you had to be
Just wish yourself in.
wish yourself. So,
Indeed. Well, and we talked about this last week, and I think you're bringing up the evolution of the food world here in St. Paul, Minneapolis. And Marcus, you brought up Sheiks a little while ago with graffitis upstairs and Sheiks downstairs. That was a part of an era when there were not too many fine dining establishments. Sheiks, Charlie's, as we mentioned last week.
Fabulous.
The Blue Horse, but just literally a handful.
Yeah.
And now we're living in a really cool world of great food, great pub food, which the Loon has been around for many, many years, and now Darby's with what you guys are working on. And also then the higher end level of food. And so it's just kind of cool to see a bigger, greater cross-section.
did you ever go to the
food.
Blue Horse? Did you ever go to the Blue Horse?
No, I never did. No, my folks didn't have that kind of money, So I mean, we did the Jack's Cafe and Little Jack's and such, but
In the back of the dining room of the Blue Horse, my parents went there quite a bit. In the back of it was a beautiful Phoenician copper horse, like the Greek mythology horse. Is beautiful.
Like a statue of it, or
No, just against the wall. It was made out of copper. It was just this thing on the wall. But it was huge, and it was the centerpiece of this dining room. It was a beautiful dining room. And one night, the night cleaning guy, this Latino gentleman, decided that the name of the restaurant was the Blue Horse, not the patinaed Green Horse, and went downstairs and got some blue paint out and painted that copper horse. This beautiful, probably been patinaing for, if that's a proper word, for years.
we'll go with it.
And painted it like, periwinkle blue.
oh my God!
So
And
get
he got
your
fired
mops
so
and
fast.
get out.
You're out of here.
Where was the Blue Horse located?
It was on University and I want to say Rice, maybe.
Okay.
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a BP station on the corner that it was, right by where like White Castle and stuff is over there.
Yeah, in that area. Yeah. It seems
But
about
yeah,
right.
all those old establishments, Sheik's and Charlie's and Harry's and all those, that type of stuff is all gone.
Long gone, that supper club thing and that kind of mentality, but replaced by just a great cross-section, as we said, of so many more places. And some big venues, too. Some really big food venues, like your Target Field. So, Marcus, share with us this cool story that's just happened for Darby's and Target Field and the Twin season that's coming up here in 2015.
Yeah, it's actually just happened this afternoon. Darby's will now proudly be featured over at Target Field.
Nice.
Yeah, we thank you. Thank
Take
you.
me out to the ball game.
Yeah, and we will be where the State Fair concession stand is inside of Target Field. The product will be featuring, it's a Darby's Jalapeno Bacon Tacho, which if you're Minnesotan, you sure know what a tater tot is. And surprisingly, there was a lack of any kind of tater tot offerings at Target Field. So I think it's a win-win for not only Darby's, but for Target Field as well, introducing a product that is very well known in Minnesota and has our little specific Darby spin to it.
Nice.
If
Well,
you don't
at
mind me
Target
asking,
Field.
how long does it take to get a product like that into Target?
It was a whole lot of persistence. Luckily, I have a couple of connections over at Target Field that we've done some catering over there in the past. Specifically, just this past Twins Fest at the Town Ball Tavern for a corporate VIP event. And through some networking of people that I met there, was able to get an audition in front of Pete Spike from Delaware North. And Pete and I hit it off, and the next thing you know, we've got a product at Target Field.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
it's-
Vic, we have the Loon Cafe has our chili at
Yep.
Target Field as well.
which is phenomenal.
Now, I have an old friend from upstate New York who came into town a few years ago, and I used to be down the street over at Minnesota News Network, just down from the Loon in the Butler Square building. And I met him there, and he said, I got to have some lunch. Where are we going? I said, well, let's go to the Loon. And he walks in, and he goes, and he says to somebody in there, he says, what's your best thing? And the guy says, chili. And it blew this guy away.
Yeah.
He just loved it. Here's
Yeah.
a guy who loves, he's really into the chili thing. And you guys,
Yeah, we
Knocks it
serve. I think we're probably in about 10 different serving stations there, and
Yeah.
wow.
and we don't get. I mean, we don't get any monetary thing. It's just the signage and the promotion for it.
But it goes such a long ways. It's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And that's what we're looking forward to is, I hope that someday we're around as many years as the Loon Cafe, but just the fact that you get your name out there and our proximity to Target Field, it's a great thing. And hopefully, like I said, baseball team starts winning games.
Let's get some games won, baby, because that means a lot for that whole
that.
neighborhood. And it means a lot just for fans in general, obviously.
Yeah.
We got to do a little quick transition here, my friends, because we're at about halfway through the show, and we want to make sure we fit in some things that are important in the food world here, in addition to our three great guests, Marcus Dorn from Darby's. Bick Smith is here from, you're calling it Gangsterland Coffee then, Bick? Is that what it's
Gangsterland
called?
Coffee, that's what
I
it's
love it.
called.
And Brian Turner here from the Loon Cafe, along with yours truly, BT, and Lydia with Foodie Friday. Just this past week, the 2015 Restaurant and Chef Award semifinalists